Hello there and welcome to my channel. My name is NonGone and I've never been really good at anything. I finally one day said enough is enough, and using the power of the internet and a little help from my friends, I decided to learn how to do stuff. And you can too. In today's episode, I'm really excited about this. We're going to be doing something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and that is we're going to learn to travel the world. Yay! I wish I had a little globe I could spin. International travel. So I grew up in a place that was an easy day trip away from Niagara Falls. So most of my neighbors and friends and schoolmates had been in at least two countries by the time they were 13 or 14, and I was no different. I was absolutely fascinated by the depth and breadth of the experiences that are available in the world. Just so much that you can see and so much that you could do and so much life that there is to experience. And I've always been passionate about that. I vowed to myself when I was in high school that I would go to every country. I was in the Boy Scouts at the time, and my Scoutmaster had just been to Antarctica for his seventh continent. And I thought that was just like the coolest thing ever. And I still think that was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, yep, I got my checklist of every country of the world. So I turned 18, and the first chance I got, the first break out of school, out of college, I went on a road trip with my buddy to Mexico. And he, incidentally, is still my best friend. That's his picture in the intro for all of these videos. So he's a big fan of mine and a big supporter of the channel. He-Man! And he was my third country. We went to Mexico together. The year after that, I had a chance to go sailing with that same Boy Scout troop in the Bahamas, and I took it. So I'd been to 4 countries by 1997. By 2022, in November or so of 2022, I had been to, you ready for this? Yeah, you guessed it, 4 countries. Kind of a bummer. So Mrs. Gone and I decided to plan a trip and execute a trip to Central America with our goal of getting into all 7 countries there. And we did this over the holidays. The trip is over, so the point of this video is to share some of the highlights and lowlights of that trip with you, and also give you some tips for international travel and what you can think about. But the most important reason, and this is the reason I want to do these learn to do stuff, is that if you feel that you want to experience things like this in the world and lack the confidence, you don't feel like you can do it, let me tell you, Mrs. Gone and I are not rich and famous. We are just regular office people doing regular office things with regular office vacation. And we were able to do something like this, and we enjoyed the heck out of it. And I can't wait to do it again. So if you could use some of these tips, that would be great to help you get where you want to go and experience some of the world that's out there, because it's really cool. So we ended up in 5 of the 7 Central American countries. We went to Panama and got to go in the canal in a boat with the other big boats. We went to Nicaragua and spent Christmas in Granada, which was really cool. They do like a citywide celebration in the town square in their old Spanish missionary church kind of thing. And they're big in chocolate, so we went to a chocolate thing. We spent a couple days on the beach, the Caribbean beach in Belize, also towards some Mayan ruins there. And we spent a few days, including New Year's, in Guatemala, in Antigua, Guatemala, with the great big giant volcano overlooking the town. And that was pretty much the trip. It was a lot of flying. It was a lot of border crossings that we had to be on our toes a lot of the times. But overall, it was a trip of a lifetime. We really loved it. So that's what we did. As far as some tips for you on how to do this, I have broken this down after a lot of thought into 4 areas, and through the magic of language manipulation, they're even alliterative. We're going to call them the 4 F's. And no, one of them is not the F word. It is forethought, finance, flexibility, and most importantly, fun. And that's what we're going to cover today, along with some pictures from the trip and some things off the internet and stuff like that. So you don't have to just look at my face the whole time. So the first F when you're planning an international trip is forethought, planning, right? Second to fun, this is the most important thing in your trip. It's the most time consuming. It's a lot of work to plan a trip like this, but the more you do up front, the less drama you'll have on the back. I promise you. So the thing you first think about is like planning your airfare and hotels and all that stuff, and that's fine. But what I would really advise is think about the most important things that you want to do on a trip in this country. Like, what is it that you'll feel like you missed out on if you don't go? A good example is spoiler alert, we're planning another trip to Ireland, and we're going to go to Scotland for a day as well. And when I think about Scotland, I think about Scotch because I'm a whiskey drinker. I think about golf because I'm a golfer, and that's the home of golf. I think about haggis because that's not anything that I would ever eat in my life. And look it up if you want. Haggis. Check it out. Scotland, man. Wow. And I think about kilts, and that's pretty much it. I know Scotland has other things. There's lots of medieval castles. There's the Highlands. There's Loch Ness and the Loch Ness Monster. But you know what? That stuff isn't important to me. And what matters is that you see the things that are important to you. It's your trip and your life. Not everybody wants to see the Colosseum in Rome. I mean, there's 5,000 people there every day milling around, and maybe those crowds are not your jam, and you can see it on the internet. Maybe if you go to Italy, you just want to eat pizza for a week. And so think about that. Think about not only the specific things that would be must-haves on your trip, but also think about the vibe that you want to have. Do you want to feel like you're challenging yourself in high adventure, like hiking and climbing mountains and all that stuff? Do you want to experience nature in the jungle? Do you want to look at art and culture? Do you want to see industry? Do you want to be part of the hustle and bustle of the city? That's what I think of when I think of Tokyo. I would absolutely want to spend the time in Tokyo. So once you figure out your absolutes, then you plan the mechanics of the trip. So that would be airfare, then hotels, then transportation. And a pro tip to you, we learned this a lot in Central America. If you didn't pay for your reservation in some countries, you didn't make a reservation. You only made a suggestion. we had a car rental that we rented and showed up, and there were no cars. We booked tours for places and showed up, and they'd never heard of us. So if you didn't pay for it up front, you are apparently not entitled to whatever you reserved. So just keep that in mind, that different things are that way. Also think about your safety. Not every country is safe in general, and every country has places where you shouldn't be going. So just keep that in mind and act accordingly. The U.S. has most embassies in most countries, and they'll give you a pretty good idea of where you should and shouldn't be going. As far as personal, I had a fake wallet with an expired license and a couple of fake credit cards in there in case we got accosted or somebody caught us on a corner. We kept our money and our papers, copies of our passport and licenses, in multiple different places. So if we lost or were forced to lose some of that, we could access more. None of that ever came into play. Our safety was never threatened on this trip. Nobody ever stole our stuff. But again, an ounce of prevention. Just think about that and think about how you want to do that. Language is something to plan for. We were in a very Spanish-speaking area, and we don't speak Spanish. We did our best to learn. Crash course for about 3 months, and what we came up with was mostly just Sesame Street Spanish. Hello, goodbye, please, thank you. Propina, I learned that a lot. That means tip, by the way. But I did learn all the numbers up to 1,000, and that was very valuable. So I suggest you do that if you're going to a country and you don't speak the language. At least learn the numbers, because you're going to be paying for a lot of stuff. Learn your letters, learn the alphabet, because you can spell things out. Google Translate is great. We actually got stopped by the federal police in Nicaragua at 2 a.m, which you shouldn't even be out at 2 a.m. in Nicaragua, but our flight was at 5, so we had to get there. And the fella the police officer that was there was nice enough to speak into his phone in Spanish and let it translate to English for us, and that got us out of a very uncomfortable situation, and I appreciate them doing that. Plan for currency. Money's a big thing on this. So do they take credit cards, or do they mostly use cash? Do you tip cab drivers, or do you not? What's the normal tip on a restaurant? What are the customs when it comes to the finances? In our case, a lot of the countries use the US dollar. In Guatemala, we had to exchange those for quetzals, which you can do at an ATM and it'll just dispense it. So, just keep that in mind, how you're going to pay for things. whether they take credit cards or don't. Generally, have a little bit extra in currencies if you need them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for planning that I have for you. The second F that I'm going to talk about in international travel is finance, money. Now, they say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a ninth floor balcony hotel room overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And that room made me pretty happy. It was like $50 extra. So the trick is really to manage what you have and maximize it for the amount of fun that you have. But don't feel like if you're a little bit strapped for cash that you can't do it. You can stay in hostels in a lot of places instead of hotels. If you're traveling by air, you can save money on baggage fees by not having a check bag. That probably saved us like $500 packing our 10 days worth of clothes into 2 carry-ons. Make sure you have enough money in reserve and access to it to get yourself home. Look at what the price would be for a next day flight. Add about 10 or 20% to that, and then make sure you have that amount in reserve that you can access. If something goes wrong and you have to get on a plane tomorrow, you can now pay for that plane ticket. Fortunately, in all of our trips, not a lot of them have had to end early, but one of them did, where we totaled the car 2,000 miles from our house, and we were able to get home, and we were able to work that out, thanks to my parents and Mrs. Gone's parents for that. Yeah, definitely the money helps with flexibility. Try to save it where you can, but definitely also try to maximize your fun. So if there is something that's expensive, but it's really worth doing, you're going to remember the experience and probably not the money you spent on it. So just keep that in mind. The third F that we're going to talk about is flexibility. And I've got 2 things to illustrate with this, and hopefully you can just kind of pick up the tips from it on that. This trip originally was, I'll show you on the map what we were going to do. We were going to fly to Cancun, rent a car, and drive to Panama and back in 10 days. I looked at it on the map, and in the States you go 80 miles an hour or 70 or whatever, and you can get a couple thousand miles in 3 or 4 days. It is 43 hours of driving alone from Cancun to Panama. So that would be 86 hours of driving in 10 days, not counting border crossings. Basically, we wouldn't have time to do anything else with this horrible situation that we had. Again, that's why you plan stuff, right? Also, you can't rent a car that lets you go to Panama from Mexico. There's no permits that will let you do that. So we would have had to, and I actually did look this up and work it out. We would have had to rent a car in Mexico, drive it to Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras, and park it in Honduras, rent a different car in Honduras, and drive it to Nicaragua, and then rent a third car in Nicaragua and drive it to Panama, and then turn all the way back and pick up those cars as we were going back. It's absolutely ridiculous. Thankfully, we were flexible enough, and instead we just booked flights. And we flew to Panama City, and then to Managua, and then to Guatemala, and then home. And Belize in the middle, but that's the second part of my flexibility. So when we got to Guatemala Airport, we were supposed to have a rental car that had permits to get us to Belize, El Salvador, and Honduras. And when we got there, they didn't have the car, nor did they have the permits. And we had to sit at the airport on the bench. Mrs. Gone was an absolute beast in doing this, and booked a flight to Belize, a rental car in Belize, that left the next day, and we were able to still get to Belize and do all the things that we wanted to do there. That's the flexibility. We were able on the fly to switch plans. We switched our plans ahead of time and then during the trip, and you are going to have to do that. Sometimes something's not going to work. You're going to get to a border crossing and they're not going to let you through. You're going to get held up at customs and miss your taxi. Just keep that in mind and try to plan the best you can and be as flexible as you can. And if you have to give something up, don't let it ruin your trip. Definitely find something else to enjoy and do it. And that brings me to the fourth F, which is fun. Don't forget, you're not doing this as a business proposition, unless you are, if you're traveling for business. You do you. This video isn't for you. You're here to have fun. If this is not enjoyable, don't do it. If you get like 2 days into a trip like this and you're like, man, I hate this, fly home. Take your vacation at home. It's okay. It's only life. It's only money. Even within a trip, if you're standing in a museum and you're like, man, this sucks, I just want a pina colada, leave. It's okay. Like, why spend the next 2 hours hating yourself when you could just be on the beach sipping a pina colada, right? So that's the most important thing that I can tell you is have fun. So that's pretty much it. That's what I got for you is forethought, finance, flexibility, and fun. By all means, have a great time. Do not feel that you're not up to this task. It is a little bit of effort, but man, it sure is worth it if you really want to experience the world and what's out there to experience. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking this out. Hopefully it's helped you get to a better place, and we'll see you on the next video. In the meantime, stay bad, people. NonGone is gone.